Good afternoon, everyone. I haven't posted a video in a while. Just a lot of things have changed. So essentially, uh, back when I was, I would say earlier this year, right around February, yeah. Shortly after my dad's birthday, I kind of wanted to turn a new leaf in my life, you know. Um, a lot of this had to do with October 6th, 7th. Basically, that terrorist attack that happened in Israel, you know. Um, Kind of like contributed to a lot of changes in my life, mainly spirituality and political, you know. And I wanted to kind of be devout and returning to a more innocent state of how I was back before I started like exploring all these different uh, schools of thought, you know. When I was like 17 years old, this is like 11 years ago, you know. I was the type of guy that would bring a Bible to school every day, you know, and I was very dedicated to my faith. You know, I was a good kid. You know what I mean? Like I wore a purity ring. You know, I was taking shop class. I played football for 6 years. You know, and I started like adopting like a liberal style of thinking. You know what I mean? And I was always a straight conservative up until I was 17, you know? And I don't know. It is a very, now that I'm a grown man, almost 30 years old, I just want to say that it's a very dysfunctional style of thinking, you know? There's a lot of aspects about liberalism that isn't bad, you know what I mean? Like, equal rights to all citizens, and you know, upholding civil rights and stuff like that. It's pretty noble, but nowadays it's almost how do I put it? It's not something that they stand up for or actively fighting for. You know what I mean? It's more of an excuse for them to commit crimes. You know, because of like prior discriminatory things that Americans would do prior to 1960, but prior to the 1960 civil rights movement, you know. Nowadays, you know, I mean, liberalism in general has pretty much ruined my life, you know what I mean? And I say this in a sense to where it contributed to me being a nihilist. When I was 17, after you know my grandfather passed away and my uncle passed away, I kind of became a nihilist. You know, I stopped believing in God. I stopped believing in an omnipotent and omniscient being that's governing over me. You know, I thought I was totally alone. You know what I mean? That my thoughts weren't monitored or weren't accounted for, but they are. You know. And I just totally stopped believing in God. It contributed to a lot of poor decisions in my life, you know. It's difficult to really tell you, but I wanted to kind of go back to how I was back then, you know. It's just, you know, I've never been like really politically active in my life or anything like that, but I think nowadays it's really important. At least for me as a father, I have a 6-year-old child too, and that's another reason why I want to kind of go back to my faith, you know. And so I kind of made this commitment after October 6th. So, you know, I had long hair, you know, I smoked a lot of marijuana, just about any form, the gas mask, the vape, the hash, you know, all of that. I've used it all, you know what I mean? It's not, I mean, I'd say recreational use probably isn't responsible, you know. But anyway, generally that's kind of how I was, you know. I sort of negated important schools of thought, with marijuana. You know, I'm not gonna say it's bad for you, but I think recreational use of it is a sin now. You know, um, but anyway, after that terrorist attack, right, I just sort of stopped, you know, partaking in these hedonistic lifestyles, you know, and I just wanted to kind of change, you know. I was married for close to 5 years, and I'm still technically married, but, you know, I've had issues, and, you know, the thing about my faith, I kind of go back on and off of it. You know, when my son was born, I tried to be, more devout, you know, and for a good while there I was, you know. I used to pray at work all the time. In fact, I prayed a lot better back then than I do now, you know. I memorized probably 7 or 8 long prayers that me and my friend used to, we crafted together, you know. And I don't know, I sort of stopped believing again at some point, you know. A lot of it had to do with my wife getting an abortion, which was pretty rough, you know. And I started becoming an alcoholic at that point after we underwent our first abortion, you know. And yeah, it kind of led to a destructive path in our lives, and we made a lot of poor decisions, you know. You know, this is already becoming a long video here, but basically my life is pretty much falling apart. You know, I'm about as poor and as broken as you could possibly be. Like, I had my own car, I had a place to live decently, you know. I had a good chance, you know what I mean? I never owned my own home, you know what I mean? I've always worked full-time since I was 18, but the whole purpose of this is to sort of kind of reckon with who I am, you know, and kind of be more diligent in what I want out of my life, you know. I see all these influencers that, you know, they're talking about their faith and stuff like that, and they speak boldly on the word, you know, and you know, I've experimented with all these different schools of thought, and it's just I came to the conclusion I really just want to give my faith another try, despite the overwhelming, you know, majority believing that Christianity is a farce. You know, I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I believe it's a Judeo-Christian God. You know, and I know a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that's narrow-minded," you know. But after a lot of meditating and prayer, it just makes sense, you know. And I used to think that way. I used to have like an agnostic sort of mindset about things, but you know, Hinduism, Buddhism, you know, I've explored all of that, you know. But in general, I just find that the Bible is closer to the truth. I believe, when it comes to our supernatural power that governs the universe. I'm a monotheist for sure, you know, and I'm not going to act like I'm an expert in any of this stuff, because, I mean, humans aren't really capable of a whole lot, you know what I mean? Our mind is very limited, you know. I believe in predestination, you know, which is God has already kind of preset your life for you, you know. He presents these challenges for you. It's all a test, you know. It is still a choice, but it's like he already knows what choice you're going to make, because he knows what kind of heart you have, what kind of soul you have. You know, because this is what makes us different from everything else, you know. And a lot of this doesn't settle well. I mean, well, why would God make all these? Is this just one giant soap opera for him? You know. And a lot of people are like, you know, I think that's probably what Satan probably said. It's probably why he rebelled, you know. And that's just one of those complex emotions that people have. So it's what happens when you lean on your own understanding. Anyway, I hope y'all get something from this. It's already 10 minutes. But yeah, generally I have no time for anything. My computer broke. I don't know how much longer I'm really gonna live. Like I'm seriously at that point in my life. So that's sort of why I'm making this video. I'm just speaking from the heart. I'm not gonna edit this. I'm not gonna cut it and try to make it seem better than what it is. Because I just don't have time for that. Like literally, if you want to improve your life, it's not Wayne's World. You know what I mean? Like you have to. You're trying to strength build, you have to do some push-ups, you have to go to the gym. If you need to make money, you have to go to work. You know what I mean? And generally, you got to find something in your life to prioritize. It has to take priority. But my advice is, like, if you believe in some sort of religion or God, and just stick to it. Just have some sort of faith in life. And as a Christian, I invite you to give Christianity a try. And a great place to start is Luke chapter 14. And Corinthians, and also I want to say 1 John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. That opened my eyes to a lot of things. The Word. Essentially. And when you meditate on this, like, what is the Word? You know what I mean? How is the Word God? How does that make sense? It's just like, he who has ears, let him hear. He who has eyes, let him see. Like Jesus spoke into a lot of parables. He spoke a lot of parables. He's not someone that would quote a science book. You know what I mean? He's not. He'd be someone that would quote the Torah every now and then. He was pretty good at that. But the way he would try to communicate and reason with people is through parables. And you notice that most people nowadays have trouble kind of conveying complex emotions and thoughts in parables. But you'd be shocked to know how beneficial it is. It's a way to simplify your problems when you give it to God. And it's just a way to, like, level up on your spiritualism and your faith in general. I'm dealing with, like, a troubled past right now, but I'm a dedicated worker. I've been a blue collar worker all of my life. And my family holds the highest priority. And it's just another reason why I'm kind of abandoning the Democratic Party totally. Like, I can't support liberal ideologies because they don't care about your family. They're very nihilistic and self-interest people. They don't care about your family. You're just a number to them. They like to say that, oh, we care. We care about civil rights, equal rights. They really don't. They don't care, because these are the same people that are comfortable terminating pregnancies. You know what I mean? These are the same people that want to devalue long-held cultural traditions. These are the same people that generally want open borders and kind of want to disgrace everything we've worked hard for, or our fathers and fathers before that, mothers too. And generally, I just don't believe in the direction that they're going on. I don't think they have any long-term plans for America, and they're very poor at generational planning. You know what I mean? It's just something that Americans have been terrible at since the baby boomer era. You know what I mean? Well, we have kids, what do we do with them? Oh, have an abortion if we can't afford the standard of life that they have. What kind of thinking is that? You know what I mean? Like, back in the day, people just had kids even if they were poor or not. Sometimes they actually had to have them. But then they're like, oh, I'm too poor to have kids. That's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? And that's why we drain so much resources out of our own planet. You know what I mean? Because we have to have this standard of life in order to reproduce. No, you don't. You know what I mean? And that's just the truth of it. And it's very hard. You know what I mean? Having a stillborn is very difficult. You know what I mean? And seeing your kids die is very difficult. That's just the problem with poverty. And yeah, it's tough. It really is. You know, I only have one son. You know, I can't have any more. I mean, I can, but it's just issues with my marriage. You know, I mean, I'd like to stay with my wife, but we are having issues. You know, and generally she cuts me off of everything. It goes back to the abortion that we had. You know what I mean? And it's just, my marriage has been struggling ever since. And you know, and she's even pro-life now because of it. You know, she's not pro-choice, even though she had her abortion. You know, it was sort of like an onset thing. Like the day after it happened, it was just like, oh, you know, we're gonna be all right. We'll have enough money to enjoy our lives a little bit, and not have to stress out so much. But the opposite happened. I'm not gonna lie. Our lives got harder. It was a lot more stressful. You know, and doing what we wanted wasn't easy. You know what I mean? I would have been much happier to just had my second child and, you know, suffered and caring for him, you know? And it's very difficult, you know? I hate to talk about this because it breaks my heart every time. It's just depression issue. It's what causes me to not work out. It's what causes me to not push to the further limit, because I just want to sit around and think about it all the time. And this happened 4 years ago. And no, actually close to 5 years ago when we had the abortion. It still lingers, you know what I mean? That's why to couples that's been together for a long time, or even couples that are married, you know, I don't get an abortion. You know what I mean? There's not much I could do about it, but, you know, it ruined our marriage. I'm not even gonna lie. And we barely get along now. We don't really trust each other. I've been stressed out a lot, you know. Anger, been a huge issue of mine because of, you know, this challenging economy. I literally can't afford anything at all. You know what I mean? Like, I have to sacrifice so much just to get by. And it's, like, literally, like, I can't put cheese on my hamburger. That's how bad it is, dude. Like, I literally cannot afford anything. And even to get a cheap meal from the grocery store, I have to pay at least $4.60 for it. And that's if you want a healthy one. You know what I mean? This fast food isn't healthy. You know, it's for the proletariat, pretty much, you know? And they don't make it healthy for a reason. You know what I mean? It's a form of population control, you know? It's that simple, you know? And that's just another reason why I'm saying that liberals don't care about you. They don't care about your family. They don't care about the next generation of Americans. You know what I mean? What they want to do is just sort of negate our future, you know. And I mean, I think it's just really important, you know, like everything that's going on. And I've been a moderate since really 2016. You know what I mean? And I became full red conservative back in October. Like I said, I'm totally done with this. I'm done with this teleprompter president. I'm done with these fake people. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I try to give him a chance. I am never voting Democrat ever again. You know what I mean? And I just mean that because, like, they really don't care. You know what I mean? And the propaganda they throw out is destroying our country. Every time you see a rainbow flag, that means that's not a good thing. You know what I mean? That means further degradation of our country. You know what I mean? And it's no longer about gay people anymore. It's no longer about sexuality. You know what I mean? It's about dysfunctionality. That's what it's about. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that liberals like to do. They like to throw out these political ideals like, oh, we stand up for this, and that's why we commit these crimes. You know what I mean? That's why we destroy all this property. We use that as an excuse to riot. You know what I mean? That's exactly what they do. They don't care about your rights. You know what I mean? They're just angry because they feel like they feel like they've been cheated out of life, and they don't want to be civil about it. You know what I mean? I like generally conservatives, like everyone's like, oh, what about J6? Here's the thing about J6. That was a government building that our taxpayers' money paid for. You know what I mean? Like, that literally belongs to the people. Okay? Now, when you go burn down shops, when you go down, burn down, steal from grocery stores, that doesn't belong to the people. That belongs to a business that people worked hard to make. You know what I mean? That's what a lot of Democrats don't understand about J6. I didn't understand that. When that happened, I was like, oh, wow, I honestly hated Trump and a lot of MAGA Republicans for it. But I didn't understand it. You know what I mean? And they're like, well, it's a government building. We paid for it. You know what I mean? That's why we were there. We felt like we were disenfranchised. And in a way, they were. You look back at the country, right? And most counties were red. The only blue counties were in the cities. And a lot of people that lived in the cities were illegal immigrants, or they were first or second gen Americans, And that's why they have this mentality that they stole the election. You know what I mean? And they're represented by this party of like illegals, second or third generation Americans, and they're making decisions for all of these red counties. So that's why they're so angry. You know what I mean? And this is just I'm just a grassroots. I'm no political scientist. I only did clerical work for about 3 years. So if you're gonna comment down below and be like, oh, you're not getting your facts straight, maybe not. I don't know. You know what I mean? But generally, me as a 28-year-old, having 10 years working experience, this is just how I see the country falling apart. You know what I mean? It's my general sort of review and analysis of what's going on. Because, a lot of people who are privileged and have college educations and get scholarships, or because I don't have my family. My dad he's out of there. I'll talk about that in another video. My mom, she has had issues. I'm not a privileged person at all. You know what I mean? I lived with my grandparents. I grew up with them. My grandpa died. My uncle died. You know what I mean? I've had opportunities to escape my underprivileged life, and I've squandered them. But there's when it comes to the world of the proletariat, which is like living in the streets, living in motels, going to Waffle Houses, not having enough to really make it to the next day. They don't understand how this inflation is literally killing people. You know what I mean? Like, literally. Like, I think like 200 people in Washington State die, from getting lost in the wilderness or hyperthermia, and it's like literally they can't depend on anyone. And when you try to apply for social programs, they put you in a wait list, you know what I mean? And then you start to question the integrity of these social programs, and then you're like, I don't know if I trust it, you know what I mean? And since COVID, people have such a terrible issue collaborating about these issues, and a lot of it has to do with not trusting these organizations, because it's difficult on who to trust, and I think as things get worse, we're going to be forced into a place where we have to collaborate, you know what I mean? And you got to do it in the right issues. Like you see these pro-Palestinian protesters, like they're not collaborating the right way. BLM didn't collaborate the right way, but they like to say that they're forward thinkers, they're progressive thinkers. They're doing it the wrong way. You know what I mean? And they're ending up getting locked up. You know what I mean? And then they divide and fall apart. There's no real loyalty, integrity in the groups that they're in, and that's why they don't last that long. You know what I mean? And maybe they could bounce back one of these days, but I don't really see that happening. Because the thing is, the liberal base is too diverse, and they don't foster enough trust among the individuals there. And and they sort of rally around the banner. What was it, like the rainbow flag, right? You know, just, oh, it's all love and blah blah blah. No, it's not. You know what I mean? It doesn't work. You know, I've been to those types of things. You know what I mean? A lot of them. You know, and I'm telling you, it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, it's it just doesn't work. You know. Now it seems like the conservatives collaborate in a more in-your-face basis. Like, I cannot work with you. You know what I mean? They're not going to conceal what they think about you, what your value is to them. You know what I mean? They straight up say, you're a liability to me. You need to go somewhere else. I can't work with you. You know what I mean? That's honestly a very upfront and good thing. While other people are like, I don't know, you have to change the way you're thinking. And, you know, it's, you know, the world isn't that passive, you know. Anyway, this is just a brief rundown of kind of what I'm going through, you know. But, you know, I take my work really seriously. Things are pretty messed up for me right now. I don't really see things getting much better anytime soon, you know. Maybe I'll come out of this or something, but, you know, I'm physically weak, spiritually weak right now, and, you know, half the reason why I'm making this video is because I am sort of drained. I'm almost at the point where I can't handle this stuff anymore, you know. So, and when you're at your wit's end, you seem to really want to be open about your convictions and your long-standing beliefs, you know. And I just want to clarify, because I did live with my family for like a month, right? And then me and my aunt, she was my benefactor, we kind of couldn't get along, you know what I mean? And a lot of it had to do with, you know, parenting, pretty much, you know, family dynamics and things of that sort, and me being brutally honest about how I feel about things. I'm not saying that it's the truth, but that's how I feel is true, you know what I mean? We've argued about petty things and about stupid issues, and, you know, all of these things, you know what I mean, that kind of led up to me getting kicked out of the house. It wasn't because, you know, it wasn't, I would say, for anything serious, you know what I mean, in my book, but it's, to them, like, you know, they've cut me off completely. I've never been so disconnected from my family in my life, except even when I was in Washington, at least they would call me, you know. Now that I'm here home, it's like, what am I gonna do, you know? But hey, you know, like, generally, I have a 2,300 core and $400 to my name. It's gonna be a miracle that I make it out of this with a profit, you know. And I've been in low situations in my life. I'd say the most I've ever had in my bank account was $5,000, you know. And I've had a lot of opportunities that I missed out on, and I tend to just sit around and think of, like, man, I could have done it that way. And they're like, oh, that's not beneficial. I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe if I had a better shot in the future, you know, I mean, maybe I'd make the right decision, you know. But all I can say is a lot of the factors that ruined me was this pandemic, you know, the inflation, you know, liberal thinking, you know. I'd say, like, you know, generally it's just, they like to feel like they're on the correct side of the moral compass, but they're nihilistic people, like, generally, like, atheistic or the co-eists, you know, their moral compass is easily manipulated, and it's not, there's no integrity to it, you know what I mean? Well, people of faith kind of hold more conviction on what they believe in, and generally how I feel. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's liberals out there that hold a moral compass well better than others, but, you know, when you deviate from your convictions, that's when corruption pretty much sets in. You know, you got to be wary of that. You know. And finally, I want to end this on, I've been trying to join the Army, and that's also a major reason why I'm kind of going back and focusing on my faith, you know, is because for a while there, I was kind of concerned that there would be another major conflict kind of coming our way, and there still might be one, you know. So I was kind of making preparations and joining the army. At first, it was the reserves. And then I messed the reserves up really bad, and it was because of my progressive thinking, you know. And because I'm not gonna lie, I mean, there's a lot of appealing aspects to progressive thinking, you know what I mean? But generally, it's up there in your imagination. It's not in real life, you know what I mean? There's no earthly substance to it, you know what I mean? Because you can think about, once AI is established, you know, and I have my contact lenses that produces an augmented reality, everything's going to be okay, and that's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years. That's not what's happening now, you know what I mean? At least not in my life, you know what I mean? There's people driving around in Cybertrucks, they don't have an augmented reality like that. The prompts aren't just popping up and, you know, you're going about things like that. But, you know, it's good to have that sort of progressive thing, because one day, I mean, you know, just all augmented reality, you know, and just that's a possibility. But is that something that's really healthy for the human mind? Is that something that we really want to distribute amongst our society? Or should we try to focus on lifestyle habits that's more conducive to the individual's thought, or just people in general? Because when you give someone this amount of technology, they tend to become very individualistic and self-interested, you know, and they don't want to communicate and socialize like how we used to do before the internet, before 1980, you know. And generally, people would read books on the subway trains. They would try to carry on conversations and stuff like that. But people are also more blunt about their class. Like, class struggle was a little bit more in your face back then. While nowadays, you know, poor people like me can have the confidence to carry on a conversation with someone that makes, let's say, $40,000 a year or so, you know, because I have access to this technology and I can understand financial literacy a lot better. While back in the day, people just didn't understand it, you know, and you know, that's gonna, like, the future of class struggle is gonna be really weird too. But, you know, all I can say is you got to be prepared for it. You know, you can study, you know, college textbooks, AI prompts, or whatever. You know, generally the degree is good because it shows that you can collaborate with like-minded individuals. That's what I see as a benefit to a degree, because anyone can digest into this literature, you know, or open up an AI prompt and try to recite something. You know what I mean? And people can literally go to ruin over this. You know, like, people can get extremely obsessive about character development and improving your dialogue, and, you know, self-editing your behaviors and stuff like that. And it's difficult. You can't really do that on your own. You know what I mean? And generally, that's something you should bring to Christ. You know, I mean. And because it's a serious thing, you know. I mean, this stuff isn't new. AI isn't a new novel concept. I mean, back in the 70s, you know, they had concepts of AI and stuff. It's just actually real now. You know what I mean? But see, the progressive thinking is something that isn't quite real yet. It's still up there. You know, could it be real? Yes. You know, they already have. Was it gene editing software? You know what I mean? You can replicate humans in the lab. You know, you can probably make clones. No, I'm serious. You know, I mean, this isn't crazy thinking or talk anymore. Now, has it been established? No. You know what I mean? Could it be? Yeah. You know what I mean? And generally, I don't think our society is ready to experiment with that kind of stuff. You know, and I think what we need to do is focus on values, and then establish an Polynesian society, because the way our society is right now, we're not ready to establish an Polynesian society yet. I don't think so, anyway. You know, what we need to do is maintain our cultural traditions, our values, you know, and have a better means of control with this stuff, you know, as opposed to having it unregulated. You know what I mean? Um, and these are controversial for progressive thinking that made me kind of appeal to it. And it's just like, maybe maybe the Democrats got it right, and maybe we could make an a Polynesian society with this liberal type thinking. You know what I mean? But no, I no longer believe that anymore. You know what I mean? I don't think our society is ready for it. We're too immature. You know what I mean? Uh, it, it's just too unregulated. You know what I mean? It's like giving nukes to 10-year-olds. Like, you don't want to do that. And and to me, I feel like sort of not immersing yourself in these progressive thinking you can start to be level with what your true purpose in life is. You know what I mean? Which is, like, I'm a blue collar worker. I go to work every day. I just try to take care of my nuclear family. You know what I mean? That's what I want. You know what I mean? I don't want my mind sort of swirling around all these, new and progressive thinking. You know what I mean? Let other people do that. Let Elon Musk do that. You know what I mean? Because it's so easy to get lost in it. And then you find yourself devoting all your thought energy into this stuff, and really it's just sort of a waste of time. You know what I mean? And also, your life is super short. I'm probably not going to see any of this stuff that happened in my lifetime, and I won't be able to afford it. You know what I mean? So one thing you gotta understand is another thing about my generation that sucks. All these dreams are probably already foreclosed at this point. You know what I mean? And just with your basic income, because I mean, unless you come up with something brilliant, or you're able to cultivate interest in people and generate wealth, there's a lot of dreams that are probably not likely going to happen, especially if you have kids and stuff like that. And when you make a certain amount every year, it's basically a foreclosure of that dream. Like, I'm not going to have a 2-story beachfront property in California. That's probably not going to happen. And therefore, thinking about that's a waste of time. You know what I mean? But what's not a waste of time? Thinking about your faith. Thinking about your long-standing traditions. Thinking about the convictions that you're willing to give your life for. You know what I mean? That's just another thing about the Army. You know what I mean? Because when you're a soldier, right, you got to be prepared to give your life for your country. You know what I mean? And then you got to make a will. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people, young men, that don't know how to write a will. You know what I mean? They don't understand how to divide the property. If they have no property, what do they want to say to their loved ones after they're dead? You know what I mean? And that's really important. And sometimes I just get stuck. Well, what do I want to leave behind after I leave? I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't want to seem like that my world perspective is right, because generally it isn't. You know what I mean? I do have flawed thinking. You know what I mean? And if I ever feel like I'm not confident in what I'm saying, I pray about it. You know what I mean? And if I'm not ready for something, I just I pray about it and I surrender if I need to. And that's just a way to maintain my faith and move on with my life. So because, like, when it comes to sin, right, like resentment, guilt, holding grudges, arrogance, pride, you know what I mean? All of these things that the Bible tries to warn against, it causes death. You know what I mean? It causes the destruction of relationships, And that's just not with people of faith, just anyone in general. No one really likes an arrogant person. They don't like a prideful person. And all of these things can burn bridges, you know what I mean? It's happened in my life. That's the reason why my family cut me off, is because I had a lot of pride, you know what I mean? Like, all that happened was because I had a lot of pride. It wasn't because I wanted to, like, be authoritative or anything like that. You know what I mean? And generally, it's not good to engage in an argument or a discussion or a debate when holding these sort of emotions, And my faith is sort of a way to regulate it all, know. Anyway, this is a long video, but I just want to pray for anyone who watches this, and I hope y'all get something from it. I'm gonna try to post more content as time progresses, and maybe sort of show you a little bit of what my life is like. I wish I started doing this a long time ago, because if you read my page, I made this. I sort of refaced all my social media platforms from liberal, forward-thinking to conservative. You know what I mean? Conservative Christian. Repenting is a very big deal for me. And a lot of forward thinkers that participated in Christianity, they don't think about repentance, because they're like, it doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. What am I repenting for? You know what I mean? This is all just one nihilistic primordial suit. Repentance is important. It's not just important for salvation. It's important for your mental health. In my book, it's important for your mental health, because if you don't look back, and try to be accountable for your mistakes, it's just going to come back and bite you, and then you're going to really hurt about it, and that's just what's really important about repentance. And it's a way of liberating yourself from sin, and I want to encourage you to do that and liberate yourself from sin, and I'm not asking you to change your political beliefs or anything like that. That's just one of the things that prompted me to take my faith to the next level as a backsliding Christian, because I've always been a Christian my whole life. And in 2016, when my son was born, I was sort of very faithful. I'm very devout. As a young man, I was a little bit more devout than I am now, or between 22 to 26 years old. Yeah, I didn't start becoming really nihilist, I would say, until 2019, 2020, and 2021 and 2. At some point I sort of realized that the only way through salvation is with God, and that's a spiritual thing. It's not, I'm not trying to say that's what you need to do, but for me and my life, that's the only way I can ever be happy. Anyway, God bless y'all. Stay safe, stay profitable, and I wish you the best. You're all in my prayers.